All right. Am I unmuted?
You should be. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Hello and welcome to our virtual launch for Ross Wilcox' new book. And we're thrilled to have everybody with us. Starting up the evening, first we'll be hearing from Josh Denslow. Josh Denslow is the author of the collection Not Everyone is Special from 713 Books. Recent stories of his have appeared in Catapult, Volume 1, Brooklyn, Hobart, and Pithead Chapel. In addition to exploring dungeons in The Legend of Zelda with his 3 boys, he plays the drums in the band Boris a Kane. Did I get that right?
That's perfect.
All right, Josh, over to you.
Thank you. You know, honestly, I was playing Zelda about 5 minutes before I started the Zoom, which is different than what I normally do because normally it takes me 45 minutes to drive to Malvern. So playing Zelda was actually kind of cool. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited about Ross's book, and I'm pretty excited to meet Leland too, because he's published both of our books, and you'll hear him read in a second too, but this is a really cool night for me, so I'm excited. Yeah, so I'm gonna read a story. It's actually unpublished. It's not from my collection, though. If you don't have my collection, I hope you pick it up. But this is from another series I've been doing, and hopefully this will be out in the world one day too. This one is called Remnants. I'm gonna drink some water real quick. It's so weird I can't hear anybody because it just seems like I'm just hanging out in this room all by myself, just reading. All right, so this one's called Remnants. There it is again, Ginny said, her head lifted slightly off her pillow, as if the sound of our garbage cans clattering onto the driveway needed to enter both of her ears at the same time. I think we should throw away more stuff so they're heavier, I said. This was the 3rd week in a row that our cans had been knocked over in the night. Or you could go out there and see what's causing it. I just got in bed, I said. Ginny's lawyer show had ended before I was done updating my resume, so she'd gone off to sleep without me. After she'd left, I'd stayed up watching risque late-night programming, hoping that someone would get naked. Nobody did. Let's get to the root of it, she said. I have a better idea. I snaked my hand up Ginny's thigh, and she kicked me in the shin. Really? She said, in that sing-song way she'd picked up since she started working at the salon. I thought now that you were awake, we could get a little frisky. Please don't call it that. And you're just trying to get out of investigating the garbage cans. That's not it at all, I said. I genuinely want to be with you. Now you sound like a romance novel. I didn't know how to tell her that what I really wanted was for her to squeeze my arm or give me a kiss without me asking. I wanted it to feel like she was always checking to make sure I was still there, because that's how I felt about her. I'll go out there, I said. I got up and put on a pair of sweatpants and a black t-shirt I'd had since high school. It used to have a band name screen printed on it, but it was long gone now. Ginny rolled away from me and pulled the blanket over her shoulder. If I didn't get a job soon, I wouldn't be allowed in this bed much longer. The night was cool. Our driveway was perfectly parallel with the driveways of the 4 connected townhomes on either side. Everyone's cans were out on the curb. Ours were the only ones knocked over. It was completely quiet. I looked down the street one way and then the next. I looked up into the sky. I looked once more at the cans in the other driveways. Investigation complete. I wasn't some kind of garbage night Sherlock Holmes. That's when the shadow of one of the toppled cans stretched like taffy, pulling away from the can and hovering above it. The shadow had a head and broad shoulders, and it was breathing. Hello, I said, because there wasn't a single brave word in my head. A loud huff. The shadow moved away from the cans, long loping arms appearing. As it approached the streetlight, I saw its body was covered in matted fur. Turns out, Bigfoot had knocked over our cans. He moved slowly as if he thought I might run in fear and he could return to our trash. He clutched something dark and lumpy under his armpit. My curiosity about Bigfoot's purpose was too much to bear. What do you have there? I said. Bigfoot stopped in the middle of the street and stared at me. His low forehead made it impossible to tell if he was angry or not. He held the little bundle out in front of him. It had a slightly human shape, but no structure holding it together. He took a few steps closer. The light caught it, and I saw it was made from clumps of Ginny's hair and her makeup remover pads and the other stuff she sloughed off in the course of a week. Bigfoot had made a person-shaped thing from it all, a Ginny-shaped thing. He pointed up to our window. "Ginny," he grunted. He hugged the hair creature and it broke apart, bits of hair and detritus falling to the street. Suddenly, he was on his knees, crying. He clawed at the asphalt until the wreckage was heaped in a ball. I should have been scared, but instead, I saw a creature not unlike me, craving a bit of intimacy from Ginny. "I'll help you," I said, and approached Bigfoot with my hands out, palms facing him, the universal sign for I'm a huge wuss and I'd never fight you in a million years. Bigfoot grunted and hunched his body over the pile of hair, protecting it as his tears fell in enormous splashes. I moved next to him and placed my hand on his back. He was warm and solid, and he was vibrating with sobs. "This isn't that bad," I said. "We could fix this." He looked up at me, and it was a bit of a shock. His face was double the size of mine. "Bring it over here." I mimed picking up the hair pile in my arms, and he got the idea. We moved together toward the upended trash cans. I pointed to the ground, and Bigfoot laid the pile gently on the driveway. As he was reshaping it, I began digging through our trash. I found the remains of our takeout Chinese food and soggy coffee filters. I thought about Ginny's and my life together, and how I could see it all laid out here on the ground, like reading tea leaves. Ginny and I were two people who shared trash and not much else. Bigfoot had decided I didn't pose much threat to his pile, and he returned to his work sifting through our discarded life. "You need more hair," I said, "and something to keep it all together." He held up a pregnancy test. I could see in the dim light that it was negative, which was good, but the problem was Ginny and I hadn't had sex in almost 2 months, so there should be no need for a test. "You stay here," I said to Bigfoot, and he snorted at me again. "I'll be right back." When I returned to the room, I was surprised to find Ginny facing the door with her eyes open. "What was it?" "Bigfoot," I said. "Not again," she said, and sat up abruptly. Her long black hair fell onto her shoulders like she was filming a shampoo commercial. "What do you mean, not again?" "This is the second time he's tracked me down." She made a pouty face she'd also picked up at the salon. "He probably has a great sense of smell," I said. "Well, I'm not moving again. Go out there and tell him to leave." "Why does he keep tracking you down?" She leaned her head back as if she was about to tell me the most trivial thing ever. "I hooked up with him during spring break a few years ago." "You hooked up with Bigfoot?" I said, and I weirdly wanted to cry. "So wait, would you prefer I call it hooking up instead of getting frisky?" "Oh, grow up," Ginny said. Now was the perfect time to mention the pregnancy test. Instead, I said, "I'd like to hook up with you." She rolled away from me again. "Get rid of Bigfoot and we'll talk." I went back to the front door and watched Bigfoot moving deftly in the darkness, tenderly picking out pieces of Ginny and adding to his pile. He looked up and saw me watching and waved me out to him. I opened the door, not sure what to say. "Hey, man." Bigfoot grunted and patted the sides of his head like he was styling an imaginary head of hair, all the while staring at me, his face wrinkled and serious. It was hard to imagine Ginny hooking up with him, but unfortunately, it was hard to imagine her hooking up with me either. He grunted louder now, his hand gestures becoming more exaggerated. "I'll see what I can fish out of the shower," I said. I walked slowly back to the room and heard the level breathing of Ginny. It was hard to believe she'd fallen asleep so quickly, especially not knowing the outcome of the Bigfoot situation. "Ginny," I said. She didn't move. Her breathing never faltered. I stomped loudly into the bathroom and began knocking over her bottles of lotions and creams and deodorants. They clattered loudly into the sink. Then I swung open the shower curtain, and it reverberated on the shower rod like an impending storm. I knelt and pulled a small tuft of her hair from the drain. not nearly enough. That's when I spotted the pair of scissors with pink handles on top of the toilet bowl. I snatched them up with no immediate thought as to what they might accomplish. They just felt good in my hand. They felt like an answer. I moved back into the room. "Ginny," I said. A long inhale. I leaned onto the bed, the mattress squeaking gently. I found the pregnancy test. A long exhale. Her hair was splayed on the pillow behind her. I ran my fingers through it, smoothing it into an upside-down question mark. Then I tucked her hair between the blades of the scissors. She didn't move. Cool. Thank you.
I got so involved, I just lost you. I thought that was great.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So our next reader, so I'm going to mute Josh. I'm going to bring up Leland. There he is. So Leland's already ready. So our second reader is the wonderful Leland Chuck, a MacDowell and Hawthorne Castle Fellow. Leland Chuck is an award-winning author of 3 books, most recently the novel No Good, Very Bad Asian. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in NPR, The Washington Post, San Francisco Chronicle, and Salon. He founded the indie press 7.13 Books. Leland?
Hey, everybody. You know, my book came out late last year, so I missed out on all the Zoom explosion of a book event. So I'm not even sure I'm going to know how to do this. But I'm going to read from my novel, No Good, Very Bad Asian, my first Zoom reading. And anyway, it's a novel about a Chinese-American stand-up comedian who's famous, kind of like a Chris Rock, kind of cross between a Chris Rock, Chris Farley, but he's Chinese. And he's telling the story of his life to his 7-year-old daughter, estranged daughter. And that's basically the conceit of the book. So it's epistolary. So if you can imagine me as a portly stand-up comedian, I'll imagine you guys as a crowd, and we'll pretend like we're in a comedy club. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine becoming a successful anything, let alone a comedian. I fully expected to be a huge disappointment. Life's first disappointment was my name. My real name isn't serious. My Chinese name is pronounced Hor. Hor Luck Lee. I was born in America. Your grandparents saw 16 candles. They were quite familiar with Long Duck Dong, and they named me Hor anyway. It was my dad's idea. He wanted to keep me as Chinese as possible. For much of my childhood, I remember him as a yellow version of a Black Panther. He wanted me to learn Jiaohua, understand every little Chinese tradition, and eat only South Chinese cuisine, even those lotus seed mooncakes that taste like sand and a sprinkle of piss. You know what his name is? John. One of my earliest memories was of my dad having a conference with my kindergarten teacher, Ms. Jamushki. Ms. J was my first crush. God rest your pantsuits, Ms. J. She was also 60. As a kid, I had bowel control problems, foreshadowing events in adulthood. In Ms. J's classroom after school, my dad had to squeeze into one of those kiddie desks and explain my accidents. And even though he cleaned me up on many an occasion, my dad denied the existence of my loose bowels like they were Iranian nukes. Why you don't think it's someone else, eh, Miss Jamuski, he said. Why you think it my son? Is it because he Chinese? Mrs. J rolled her eyes. Of course not, she said. Half the class is Chinese. Does that make you angry? You're being ridiculous, replied Mrs. J, who glanced at me apologetically. You white women are all the same, my dad said. I will report you to principal. Mrs. J planted elbows on desks. Her palms met like she was in prayer. Listen, Mr. Lee, she said, your son smells like God's vomit. I let out an embarrassed laugh, which turned into an uncontrollable fit of giggles. The more I thought about what she said, the funnier it became. Wouldn't God's vomit smell like flowers made of soap and glow like cartoon gold? Ms. J and my dad both stared at me like I'd been possessed. And that was the first time I remember laughter making me feel better about myself. I didn't have a happy childhood. I don't know what to do around people who have a love-love relationship with their families. When folks talk about how nostalgic they are for their upbringing, I expect someone to cue a laugh track. I grew up in Alhambra, California, near Pasadena and San Gabriel Valley. There are lots of Chinese people there. By lots, I mean when people talk about white flight, San Gabriel Valley is from where the whites flee. That might be a children's book. The children there aren't very, the Chinese there aren't very assimilated. My parents knew millionaires who had been in America for 3 or 4 decades and didn't speak or read a word of English. Most of the kids I grew up with in my neighborhood never left the valley. They had thick accents despite being American born. They lived with their parents well into their 30s. And when they married and had babies, they lived with their moms and dads and their grandparents, their spouses, and their brood in the same house, the ultimate Yellow Panther achievement. The America outside San Gabriel Valley, where it was okay to be gay, where every Black person wasn't a likely criminal, where women didn't have to take a backseat to men, might as well have been Mars. My parents owned and worked at a round-the-clock liquor store near Hollywood. Mom, dad, his parents, and I lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment where I slept on a sofa every night. Yellow Panther bonus points. To this day, I have trouble sleeping in real beds. Mom and dad argued a lot. My mom didn't like the way my dad spent his days, and my dad didn't like being questioned. When he wasn't working, he loitered at a Vietnamese deli where they served banh mi, sweet coffee, and gambling addiction. Whenever my mom mentioned condensed milk, we all knew she meant baccarat. My grandma and mom hated each other. Grandma took my dad's side on everything. If dad wanted to gamble a little bit after a hard day's work, put it all on red. If my mom had a problem with it, get a second job. Grandma was often horrified by what American schools taught us. In first grade, around Thanksgiving, the teacher made us make Puritan hats out of black construction paper with the buckle cut out of white cardboard. And white is the color of death for the Chinese, and Grandma couldn't have that. She took a red ballpoint pen and colored in the buckle so I wouldn't risk being suddenly struck down by the Chinese gods. I cried and cried and told her I'd be ridiculed nonstop, but she kept scratching away that evil color, steadfast and uncaring. I had to wear that defaced hat to school, and sure enough, the white kids called me rice picker, boast monkey, refugee, and many, many other names. Why didn't you just listen to me? I wailed when I came home. Why would we? She said. You're just a child. Let's see, I'm gonna move forward a little bit. Here we go. Our apartment was so small that I could hear it whenever my dad tried to get frisky with my mom, usually on Sundays when the liquor store was closed. He didn't succeed often, thank God. And for the times he did, let's just say it didn't sound like he was any good. I was 9 when I realized what they were doing. Once on the drive home from the grocery store, my mom and I were in our pickup truck at the stoplight, and in the car beside us was a white couple making out. Hey, Mom said, disgusted. Don't watch. White people are always having sex. They look at each other and that's it. They can't control themselves. There's something wrong with them, Americans, always having sex like animals. Your dad learns from them, always wanting to fool around. I did my best to tune her out as this went on and on. She did not like sex. This she made clear. See, as I reached puberty, the Lee women agreed on one thing. Something had to be done about my face. Mom hated the way I looked. I was chubby, my hair stuck up from multiple cowlicks. My acne was so bad that my mom got tears in her eyes when she stared at me too long. She spent the little money we had dragging me to dermatologists who did painful extractions and made me a lab hamster for Accutane and Retin-A. My mom would often say that no one would want to marry me unless I lost some weight and did a better job of washing my face. And now that your mom has left me, my mother has resurrected this talking point. Grandma distrusted American medicine, so she kept flushing my pills down the drain. She preferred to scrub my face with natural products Chinese people could vouch for: chrysanthemum tea, warm water and ginger, lotus root soup. They fought over me like I was a Middle Eastern oil field. With them buffing my face like a truck, it was a miracle I didn't reflect sunlight. My future was the only thing everyone in the Lee Council could bond over. From the time I was in middle school to when I left home, entire dinners were spent debating what I should do when I grew up. Once he's old enough to work at the store, I'll teach him how to succeed in business. My dad said, investment. That's how he pronounced the word investment. Doctor, Grandma said. Lawyer, Mom said. Dad slapped the dining table. CEO! He thrust a finger skyward with each letter. My grandpa was a quiet man who absorbed with a sublime and distant grin every one of my grandma's insults. Rice bucket, deficient brain, and my personal favorite, professional airplane hitter, a euphemism for chronic masturbator. Sometimes he'd just say, suffer today so you can have a better future. That's what we do. He glared accusingly at Dad and Grandma. For generations and generations, that's what we have done. Thank you.
That was great. That was great. Thank you, Leland. All right, so here we are. We're ready for Ross. Ross, we're gonna ask you to unmute. And Ross Wilcox is from Elk Point, South Dakota. He teaches at the University of North Texas. His stories have appeared in numerous literary journals, and he currently lives in Fort Worth with his wife and two elderly cats, 17 and 13. Right now, he's at work on a novel. He'll be reading from his debut short story collection, Golden Gate Jumper Survivor Society Stories. Ross?
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Josh and Leland, for reading and publishing, and Farouk too. Farouk deserves, he put a blurb on my book. He read it, which I cannot thank him enough for, and everybody else for being here. So I'm gonna read a short story called Of Small Account from the collection. Okay, here it goes. I told her not to, but Heidi 3D printed a little boy. He came out with oily blonde hair and a dirty face. He looked to be maybe 5 or 6, and he wanted nothing but to have a father. In fact, he wouldn't stop crying until he got one. You see, I knew this wasn't a good idea, I said. I mostly meant that we couldn't afford to have a kid, not if we hoped to pay off the house. After all, Heidi and I worked at Soy In and Out, a bottom-rung meatless fast food joint. Heidi said, I can fix this. She 3D printed the boy a really good father. This guy was tall and handsome and slicked his hair back and wore an English-cut tailored suit. He had a big house and a nice neighborhood. Sure, this father worked a lot, but he came home every night, unlike some fathers. At any rate, he could afford to pay for the boy's college. I don't want this daddy, the boy yelled. I want this daddy. The boy latched onto my leg. I looked at Heidi. She was smiling. She walked up to us, and we group hugged. In this way, we became a family. We named the boy Adam, after the first, who was also in a way 3D printed. The day before Adam's first day of kindergarten, we took him to the store to buy clothes and school supplies. Heidi pushed the plastic cart, and Adam and I walked along either side of her. If you didn't know any better, you'd think Heidi and I 3D printed our little Adam the old-fashioned way, if you know what I mean. My God, said Heidi, examining a spiral notebook. They want $3 for one of these? I showed her the school supply list from our local paper. It says we're supposed to get him 3 notebooks, I said. This stuff is all so expensive, Heidi said, glancing at the pencils, the scissors, and the folders. I grabbed one of the cheap 10-cent folders and put it in the cart. I want this folder, Adam said. He held up the most expensive one there was, a shiny Optimus Prime folder that cost 60 cents. I wasn't all that serious, but I kind of was, when I said to Heidi, you know, we can just 3D print all this stuff. That's a great idea. We abandoned the cart on the spot, which only contained off-brand glue, off-brand crayons, and the generic folder. Adam threw a fit, bemoaning our denial of Optimus Prime. It's not fair, he screamed. Heidi and I glanced around at the parental onlookers, judging us cruel and unfit parents, no doubt. Certainly the other children present felt fortunate not to have to go home with us, empty-handed as Adam was. He started bawling. I grabbed his hand and dragged him out of the store. I remember thinking in that moment that for a 3D printed kid, Adam was a lot like all the other greedy, non-3D printed kids I'd ever known. When we got home, we 3D printed Adam all his clothes and school supplies, including a passably semblant knockoff of the Optimus Prime folder. When we tucked him into bed that night, Adam was satisfied and eager to start school. Again, I wasn't all that serious, but I kind of was, thinking about money and all, when I said in bed later that night, You know, school is so expensive. I know, Heidi said. Just think about all the lunch money he's going to need. That and stuff like band and sports. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Heidi and I jumped out of bed and dashed down to the 3D printer, which we kept locked in a basement room, hidden from Adam. We hauled it out to the backyard and spent the rest of the night 3D printing a small building, which would serve as his elementary school. We 3D printed teachers, other 6-year-olds, textbooks, even a pudgy bully with a too tight striped shirt and a cowlick. The next morning, after Adam had his breakfast, we waved goodbye to him. He walked out the back door, across the backyard, and into the little 3D printed school, which we named Washington Elementary, the least suspicious sounding name we could think of. Heidi and I held each other in the kitchen and pretended like it was real, like we were watching our real son attend his real first day of school. We're such good parents, Heidi said. I pulled her tight and kissed her, but only briefly. We had on our soy In-N-Out black slacks and polo shirts, and we had to be to work in 15 minutes. Over the next few years, we 3D printed Adam new first, second, and third grade teachers, Mrs. Dobbs, Mrs. Levinson, and Miss Toth, respectively. When he joined the 3D printed Little League baseball team in 4th grade, we 3D printed all his opponents using substandard materials so that Adam would always win. We really wanted to get Adam some good real stuff, a real trumpet, say, or a real wooden bat, or a real human friend. But each month, when the mortgage payment came due, it was easier to just keep on 3D printing our son all his needs. Plus, Heidi got promoted to manager at Soy In-N-Out, which meant that in addition to getting to wear the gold manager sport jacket over her black polo, she also got a raise. We started setting money aside for retirement. If you didn't know any better, which no one did because we didn't have any friends, you'd have thought we were actually successful. In 5th grade, when Adam became interested in Eves, we 3D printed him one of those too. The first Eve had auburn hair and freckles. She looked like the mascot of a long-defunct meat-centric fast food chain. Overall, I'd say she was a success. She gave our Adam his first hand-holding experience, which took place one day at the lunch table. We made her ask him to the 3D printed school dance we held that fall, and we made Adam say yes. To this end, she provided Adam his first slow dance experience, during which Heidi, as the parental chaperone, made sure Adam's hands stayed on Eve's hips and Eve's hands stayed on Adam's shoulders. That summer, as he became more serious about baseball, he was a good shortstop. Adam broke up with the first Eve. He told her, "I just really need to focus on fielding grounders right now." But by the next fall, he seemed ready, or at least Heidi and I were ready, for another Eve. To save a bit of money, we recycled some parts of the old Eve, and this time, 3D printed a tall brunette one. She was athletic and played softball. We figured shared interest might keep Adam from getting bored as quickly. For a while it worked. Adam and the brunette Eve played catch together, practiced hitting and pitching. But Adam didn't show any interest in Eve beyond having her as a glorified teammate. Heidi and I spied on them often, and Adam didn't want to flirt with her or hold her hand, despite his other 3D printed classmates all having boyfriends and girlfriends by that point. We cornered Eve one night in the backyard while Adam was in his room studying. "You know, the all-school 3D printed dance is coming up," Heidi told her. "Yeah," Eve said, so? "So are you going to ask Adam?" Probably not," Eve said. "I don't think he'd say yes." "Why not?" I asked. "He seems to have taken a special liking to you." Eve shook her head. "I don't think he likes, my kind. Not like that." "What do you mean?" "Girls. I don't think he likes girls." "Really?" Heidi said. "Yeah," Eve said. "He's always staring at Josh. You know, Josh, the catcher on the team?" It all became clear to me then. "We don't need an Eve," I said to Heidi. "What we need is a Steve." So, using some of the spare parts of the brunette Eve, we 3D printed a Steve. We tried our best to make him look like Josh, who was short and stocky with curly black hair. Sure enough, the second Eve had been right. Adam took an immediate liking to the mysterious new student who showed up the next day at school. Before long, Adam and Steve were spending every waking moment they could together. Steve would meet Adam at our back door, and they'd walk the 10 paces to school together. By this time, we'd upgraded the elementary school into a junior high, Lincoln Junior High, to be exact, and Adam and Steve would linger between classes at each other's lockers, batting their eyes and flirtatiously running their hands along each other's chests and shoulders. Through our constant spying and questioning of 3D printed Lincoln Junior High students, we soon learned Adam and Steve were an exclusive couple. This made it a bit complicated when, one Thursday night at dinner, Adam asked if Steve, whom he referred to as his best friend, could stay the night tomorrow. Like any parents worth their salt, Heidi and I were committed to at once fostering the natural sexual growth of our child, while also artificially prolonging his first real sexual encounter. How good of friends are you and Steve? I asked. I told you, we're best friends. I think what your dad means to say is, are you and Steve friends with benefits? Friends with benefits? Adam said. Heidi nodded. Yeah, like benefits. Adam looked confused. We learned about fringe benefits in social studies, he said. No, I said, we're not talking about fringe benefits, although those are good to have and soy in and outs could be better. We're talking about sexual benefits. Adam's face turned red. He was a smart kid, and he could tell that we knew. So you know, he said. Heidi smiled warmly and took hold of Adam's hand. Of course we know, she said, which is why Steve is welcome to stay, but he has to sleep on the couch in the living room. Adam smiled, and the redness slowly left his face. Thanks, Mom and Dad. It all came crashing down because of a stupid oversight on our part. Sex ed. Heidi and I hadn't even bothered to examine the contents of the Lincoln Junior High curriculum. We just 3D printed it. So one day at school, Mr. Jeffrey, the sex ed teacher, who relayed the events of that day to us later on, taught Adam and his 7th grade classmates all about the process of human reproduction. This was kind of ironic since literally everybody at the school, including Mr. Jeffrey himself, had been 3D printed and not sexually reproduced. It became clear to the students something was off about the reproductive process Mr. Jeffrey spoke of, since none of them had actual parents who had had actual sex to produce them. Don't we come from a 3D printer? Said Jessica Kemp. Yeah, that's what I always thought, said Benjamin Martinez. My earliest memories are of the insides of a machine that took raw materials and made them into limbs and a body and a face, said Darla Friedman. Technically, you're right, said Mr. Jeffrey. We come from a 3D printer, but the school board wanted you to learn how humans reproduce. Humans? Aren't we human? Said Steve. Mr. Jeffrey shook his head. No, we're 3D objects. Who is the school board? Asked Adam. You don't know? Mr. Jeffrey said. It's your parents. At that, Adam came storming all 10 paces home, throwing open the back door. Heidi and I had gotten home from work shortly before and were preparing supper. Adam, Heidi said, you're home early. Guess what we learned about in school today, he said. What's that? Human sexual reproduction. Shit, we both said, which gave it away. I want to know the truth, Adam said. Heidi and I looked at each other, still in our soy in and out garb. We had no choice. We led Adam down the basement stairs and into the room we kept locked. I pointed at the 3D printer. That's where you come from. Adam walked up to the 3D printer and pressed the button. Out came a Steve. He pressed it again, and out came an Eve. He pressed the button again and again, until the room filled with Eves and Steves and friends and clothes and parts of schools. My whole life is a lie, Adam screamed. He looked at us accusingly. His eyes were moist, his face red. I nodded. I don't know what movie Heidi had recently seen, but she said, your life may be a lie, Adam, but our love for you is real. This only made him more angry. I hate you, both of you, Adam yelled. I'm leaving and never coming back. He grabbed the hand of a nearby Steve, a husky one with olive skin, and together they darted out of the room. We never saw our Adam again. Looking back, it's surprising Adam didn't figure out on his own he was 3D printed. He was such a smart kid. But I guess even smart kids don't stop to wonder if they were 3D printed rather than sexually reproduced. But it's okay. We have a better setup now. Heidi and I ground up all the stuff from the old Adam's life and used it to 3D print a new Adam. However, this new Adam never becomes truly self-aware, because before he does, he automatically removes his own rib and uses it to 3D print a new Eve. Then he dies, and the Eve grows and does the same thing with her rib. Then she dies, leaving us with an automated, low-maintenance cycle of toddler Adam and Eves, which we learned the hard way are the best kind. Now, we actually own our house outright, as well as the soy In-N-Out franchise we work at, which is especially profitable nowadays. If you didn't know any better, which no one does, you'd think our 3D printed veggie burgers were actual veggie burgers, and that our 3D printed employees actually got paid, which they don't, and that our whole 3D printed life is an actual life, which it really isn't, but kind of is. The end.
That was great. That was great. Really enjoyed that. Well, just so everyone knows, and we hear it again, our commercial, of course, we have books from the different readers, from Ross's book and the others as well, at Malvern Books here in Austin, Texas. If you're in town, you can give us a call at 512-322-2097. We're happy to get that together for you for curbside pickup, or we can also ship out if you'd like. So you can give us a call or shoot us an email at info@malvernbooks.com, and we're happy to send that out to you. So thank y'all so much for coming. Now, if anyone has any questions for the readers, you can go ahead and enter them in the chat box here, and then we can read from there. So let us know if you have, give you a couple minutes if anybody wants to put a message in. I'll be looking for that.
There's been some communication throughout the readings already.
I noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you see any questions? It looks like there's some definite communication going back and forth. I saw the one about lots of sex talk from all three authors here.
Well,
It's
I mean,
three
I think
men.
we can all agree that sex is the most hilarious topic, right?
I think so.
I'm just glad that Leland and I both said frisky.
Yes.
I think we're connected forever now.
No, there's a reason why I published all you guys. You guys make me laugh.
But do you still do any stand-up?
No. Yeah, I mean, I was just texting with some old comic friends, and it's really sad because a lot of those clubs are going to close because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of comics have started taking it to the park, and performing outdoors. But the weather's actually starting to get cold here in New York, and probably in the next few weeks it'll be tough to do that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years with the good old art of the traditional stand-up club. We'll see.
Same with music here. It's like those clubs are hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Netflix is kind of becoming a effective platform, it seems like, for a lot of stand-up comics. I mean, obviously you can reach way more people on Netflix than at a club, which is good.
But they're also filming live shows, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
How that's going to evolve. So hopefully.
Well, there's something to be said for feeling what somebody is giving you while you're performing.
Yes.
And I imagine it's like that for stand-up. I've never done stand-up. That terrifies me. But I have played a lot of music live, and I imagine it's the same thing. It's like, or even like just reading in this room, not being able to actually feel what's coming back is very, it changes the performance.
Yeah, there's nothing that beats like a really good stand-up laugh in a club from an engaged crowd. It's like it's like a drug. So and even readings, when you're reading aloud, you're trying to get responses from the audience, from a live audience. It's usually, it's not really a replaceable feeling that you can just like replicate online or 3D print, if you will.
Now there is a request to see your cats there, Ross. So
well, I had to put one of them in my
They're
bedroom.
not 3D printed.
Well, I had to put one of them in my bedroom because she can be really loud. Like I've been teaching Zoom classes, you know, and like she'll start meowing. She has this weird thing. There's these little balls that are full of catnip, and she gets a hold of these things and she makes this groaning noise that sounds like she's dying. It sounds awful, but she's like, they're like moans of pleasure, and it's too embarrassing. I can't like have it come on my reading, or it's happened during class too many times to where I'm like always aware of where she's at now and trying to be like not in the same room as her at all when I'm doing classes. But hold on 1 second.
I mean, I want to hear the noise now. Don't you want to hear
Yeah,
the
I
noise?
know, really.
This is
Hello?
9.
Oh, pretty.
Oh, wow.
Is this the cat that likes the catnip?
No, this is the other one because the other one's in our bedroom. This one
Oh, okay.
just sleeps like 18 hours a day.
She's beautiful. That one's beautiful.
This is the 13-year-old.
Is she the one who showed me on Twitter?
Huh?
Her eyes, is she the one whose eyes
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she's so pretty.
She was just trying to eat, and I plucked her out of the food bowl, so I'll sit her back down.
Oh, poor little thing.
We just we have a lot of animals. We've rescued a lot of cats as well. We had a cat that only had 3 legs and had the loudest meow. It was embarrassing as well. But we just got 2 kittens. And I don't know if everybody has the ability to do this, but the best thing you can do when you're locked down is just take a million pictures of 2 kittens cuddling. That's pretty much all we do now. Everyone is just nonstop taking pictures of, we have like a 5-week-old kitten and a 7-week-old or something, I think.
Wow.
It's too much, man. It's too much. The whole day will just shut down when you see, oh my God, look at the position they're in right now.
Oh, look at the baby.
Yeah, that's my brother and his daughter, who's
That's awesome.
how old? From end of February, March, August, September. So 7 months.
Nice. Oh,
7 months old is all.
Is that his first child?
Second.
Second, all right.
Got a son, 8. Is he 8 now? Holy crap. That's depressing. The little kid's getting older. No, he's in 2nd grade, isn't he, this year? Caden? Yeah, and my parents live like they live like literally right across the street from the school. It's
hi,
a,
Ross.
you can walk anywhere there. So yeah, but what else? I don't know. Questions, comments?
Yeah.
Jay, you look like you live in a museum, like an art museum.
This is my gallery wall. I have like all the things I collect from my travels, and people give stuff to me, so it just goes up on here. This is the only wall that looks like this.
Yeah, I think it's awesome though.
Right, but I'm not the author reading, so focus away.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions right now. So I guess we've all just enjoyed the reading. It was just lovely. Really, it was great to hear y'all. And I love the laughter. I mean, it seemed like it was fun to laugh and be surprised. And it was really great. We love all the styles of the reading represented. And it seems like y'all are a great grouping together. And Leland, you did a wonderful job at picking some great people to publish. It's a congratulations to you.
I try, but it's these guys, right? These
I
guys,
call
they
them-
had to write the book.
That's right. They did great. You have to get it out there. So it's wonderful. Well, thank y'all so much. If no one has any other questions, I guess we'll tie it up. So have a great weekend, everyone. And thanks again.